this meeting to order. It is 5:31. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes. Board Member Rebecca Sepulveda. Justin Allen Huntsnerger.
Excused.
Okay. Roberto David Gonzalez. Maria Elena Morales.
Roberto Gonzalez is here. Sorry, I couldn't.
Okay. Thank you. Maria Elena Morales. Cristina Lavila Villarreal.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Stanley Green. I had seen him.
Yes,
Okay.
I don't know if his mic is off.
Michelle Marie Romani.
I'm here, and board member Morales is here. I think she was kind of muted or something, but she's here.
Okay. Teresa Fonseca.
Here.
Is there anyone I did not call? All right. That's it, Kirby.
For the record, Chair, you have quorum.
We'll go to item number 3 on the
Madam
agenda.
Chair, I move to excuse board member Justin Allen Huntsnerger for work-related reasons.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item number 3, consider approval of minutes of the regular meeting of July 9th, 2020. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes, or do we need a few minutes?
I read them.
I read them too.
Look okay to me.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Item number 4 is the citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comments, or do we need to give them some few minutes to call in?
Yes, Ms. Fonseca, just as a reminder, we are being broadcast on PAC, on the City Spectrum Channel 1400, and on the website. However, there is a lag of about 30-45 seconds, and so we need to pause here for a minute or two to give the public a chance to call in whenever you see the screen for citizen comments. Now, while we're doing that, may I remind the board that best practice is to mute your mic if you're not speaking. Now, you may think, oh, well, I'm not making much noise, but even if you don't think that, sometimes it creates a feedback loop when your speakers and your mic, you can't hear it, but on our end, it really hurts the audio for the public. So if you're not speaking, please mute your mic. And if you forget, I'll mute you, and I don't mean to do that to be rude, just, again, trying to keep the audio as clear as possible so that the public can hear.
So we're about 1 minute into the citizens' comments, so we'll wait another minute and see if anybody calls in.
At this point, Ms. Fonseca, I believe you're okay to proceed, and we'll let you know if anybody does call in.
Okay, so we'll move to item number 5, public hearing and consideration of the following. Item A, public hearing and consideration of a motion to approve the following new improvements to an existing historic property at lots 4 and 5, block 42, Western Division, located at 501 San Agustin Avenue, in order to provide and install 2 new LED signs on each facade fronting San Agustin Avenue and Lincoln Street, and 1 City of Laredo police logo on the corner of both streets, as shown in Exhibit A. Historic district is Old Mercado Historic District, HDLB-09-2020, District 8. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Members we need to hear if you muted your speakers or your mics, we need to hear your,
Ms. Fonseca, just a couple points of order that might help. The public hearing portion is the portion when you're ready to call for the public, which we'll do at the end of the presentation where we normally do. The second thing is the way that other boards and commissions have done this for the virtual meetings, because it's difficult to mute and unmute, is just to ask if any are opposed, and if nobody unmutes, then you're considered unanimous. It's a little easier than asking everyone to unmute, and then sometimes they forget to mute and there's audio issues. So that may help you. You don't have to do it that way. It's if you choose, it's a lot easier to do it that way.
okay. We'll on this case, I'll ask if anybody is opposed to opening this public hearing and the motion. With no objections, and we'll move to the public hearing. Do we have a presentation?
Yes, ma'am. So as you said, excuse me, I'm gonna, I'm not sure who that was, but there you go. Okay, so the applicant is the City of Laredo Police Department, and they're being represented by South Texas Neon Signs. This is a commercial structure located at 501 San Augustine in the historic arts and entertainment zone. It's the arts and entertainment zone with the historic application, or the historic district applied to it. The request, they would like to install 2 LED signs on each facade, and then at the corner where the corner of the building, they want to install a police logo. I'll show you those in just a second. We sent out 22 letters, and we received 0 for and 0 against as of today. Here's the location on our historic districts map. You can see it's on the corner of San Augustine and Lincoln, and it's in the Old Mercado Historic District. Here's an aerial view showing you the cross streets of Lincoln and San Augustine, and that this is the property located on the southwest of that block. Here's another aerial view with showing you at an angle. Here's a couple more views, aerial views looking north and west. North on the left, west on the right. And here's a street view, a picture submitted by the applicant. This is the latest condition of the building that it's in. And just an FYI, they got administrative approval to repaint with the same colors, the approved colors, just to touch up and take care of some maintenance on the building. So nothing about the look of the building was changed. This is what they're proposing. This is submitted by the applicant, by South Texas Neon Signs. They want to put those 2 police logos, 2 police station, and then the logo on the corner. And here's the view on Lincoln. Our recommendation as staff, we do recommend approving the installation of the 2 signs on each facade and on the corner. And here's the proposed motion. You can either approve or deny this item. And then when you're ready, well, I guess you already opened the public hearing, but when you're ready to actually take public comment, let us know and we'll pause it here when you're ready. Well, I guess if you want, you can do that now, and then I'm here to answer any questions while we're waiting.
Yeah, is there anybody from the police department or from South Texas Neon Signs here?
Yes. Hello, members of the board. This is Juan Mendive. For the record, I have Mr. Molina of South Texas Neon Signs on the line for any questions.
Yeah, this is Michelle Romani. I'm the vice chair. These are we talking about 45-foot signs on either side, on the Grant side? I'm sorry, on the Lincoln side and the San Agustin side? And how are these going to be affixed?
Mr. Molina, did you hear the question?
No, I did not, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, the measurements are
Romani?
going to be, yes.
Can we have Juan repeat that? It might be a little easier.
Yes. Let me see. Can you ask that again, Mr. Romani? And I'll try to repeat it to the applicant.
Okay, the measurements for the signs, for the signage facing, San Agustin and Lincoln Streets, those are 45. And also, how are they going to be affixed to the building? How are all three of them going to be affixed to the building?
Okay, both signs are exactly the same size. They're 3 feet in height by 18 feet, quarter inch in length. They have a raceway. The raceway is affixed with mechanical screws. In other words, they're sleeve anchor posts that are attached at the grooves, not at the brick.
You can see a diagram right in the middle. That
Yes, sir.
You're looking at the sign from the side, and you can see that they're not going into the brick, but they're going into the mortar between the bricks to preserve the brick, to secure the sign.
Is that raceway being painted the same color as the wall, the brick wall?
Yes, yes, it is. We'll be matching the raceway will be matching the wall.
If the sign were to be removed when the police department, I know they're just moving in, but in the time that I've been, they're my neighbors. In the time that I've been here, they've moved locations about 4 times in the downtown area. So if they should remove it, is there going to be extensive damage or holes to the building if they should decide to move somewhere else?
No, ma'am. The only holes would be the electrical, which would be a 3/4 inch hole, and the anchor bolts, which are 3/8 inch holes. All of them would be on the mortar, so all of them would be able to be cemented.
Yeah, now, just for the record, just so that way the committee or the board can have an idea, this used to be, the latest use was as the housing for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And then they moved over to El Portal. So the police department is taking over the building, but I do agree with the point that Ms. Villarreal said, that we have to look at the ramifications of what will happen in the event that they wind up vacating this building.
Yes, ma'am. That's why we're actually going on the mortar and not on the brick. That way we don't hurt any of the brick. It'll be better aesthetics if it has to be removed, and that's why we're actually installing on a raceway, because that would minimize the amount of anchors on the wall instead of placing the letters directly on the wall.
Cookie, this is a question more for you. To your awareness, is there any sorry, I have my baby in the background. Anything that discourages LED use in the historic areas?
Well, first of all, don't ever apologize for your baby. She's welcome at these meetings. Maybe we can even give her a vote. But no, there's nothing in our ordinance that discourages LED or electronic signs in the historic district.
I'd like to make a comment on that we do need to look at updating our ordinance and our documents, our guidelines, so that we can address some of the items that have been coming up to the board in the time that I've been on the board.
I will just say that it's not a laissez-faire policy with electronic signs in the city, and that applies to the historic district as well. But there is nothing special about the historic district in terms of regulation of LED or electronic signs. But yes, there are restrictions on the type, the brightness, certain conditions like that that's in our sign ordinance. That basically limits the amount, especially in residential areas where signs can be placed, electronic signs. And, what we're trying to avoid is that it creates negative externality for property owners, especially in residential districts.
I have a concern. I do have a concern, and mostly about the aesthetic appearance. It would have been nice if the font. I realize that's part of the police department's logo, but if I don't know if it would have been a little more aesthetically pleasing, and it looks very glaring. And I know it's meant to be that way so people can see that there is a police station there, but aesthetically, the font doesn't just it doesn't seem to go very well with the building.
On the other hand, on the guidelines, we usually like to distinguish new from historic. So we wouldn't want a historic font to try and identify this as being an original, like the Woodworth sign, So
Yeah.
I thought about the font, and I came to that thinking that we're probably better off with it being a neutral, simple font, as opposed to giving it any character that would define any other period of time.
Madam Chair, we do have guidelines, as you mentioned. I don't know if we can put those on a future agenda for review, because as you said, this is not the first item that comes up with signage, and I think we need to know, are we going to disregard the guidelines because they're very specific, and I don't think this sign really respects them in every way. So, are we just going to start from scratch? Or are we going to disregard what's there?
We actually, we've been wanting to have a workshop to discuss some of these items. And I had a virtual meeting with Mr. Snyman and Alejandrina. And I will be putting together a document to the board and sending it to staff to distribute to the board, so that we can have these discussions that we need to update documents that pertain to our historic guidelines.
Is there a specific sign ordinance that goes with the historic districts, or it's just blanketed?
The existing guidelines that Ms.
Because I have the guidelines for historic landmark board here, and there's nothing really that is specific to this. But what I'm asking is if the sign ordinance that we have, if within the sign ordinance, is there something specific for the historic districts, or if it's just all the same across the board?
No, there is nothing specific for the historic district zone on signs, on signage in our sign ordinance. And,
however, there are guidelines that talk about the allowable fonts, the allowable colors. They're guidelines. It's not in the ordinance. I guess the ordinance only regulates size and location.
the guidelines are there for you to use at your discretion as you make your decisions, but there is nothing in the ordinance and the zoning that restricts the signage specifically related to the historic zone. Now, we have to be careful when we're dealing with signage, and even in historic districts with special rules for signage, that was something that just recently in 2017 with a ruling by the Supreme Court on signage, that they ruled that there's a freedom of speech issue there, and that that how we distinguish it can't be content-based. It has to be, in other words, it has to be fairly level playing field across the city how you treat uses. And so anything we do with signage basically is definitely gonna have to be reviewed. I mean, obviously it would go to legal and planning commission and then ultimately city council make a decision, but I'm just giving you a heads up that when we regulate signage, that's something that the courts are they're very careful about what they allow us to regulate in terms of signage.
Mr. Snyderman, if I can interject, that's rather a disingenuous way of applying the Supreme Court ruling to this, because we're not talking about vote for XYZ or buy my stuff or whatever, or the nefarious signage on the street that was painted on the street. We're merely talking about fonts, colors, size, and what have you. We're not talking about what the sign actually says. So there is a very big difference.
And I think that's why we need to have some discussion on the city historic urban design guidelines that chapter 5 addresses the design guidelines for signage. And I think it's time to bring that up to date, in which case we can have a section that identifies context that we are not reviewing, or that's not part of our review.
Becky, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Stan, go ahead.
You mentioned that kind of, did you see anything particularly, or in this so what, objectionable about, I'm still kind of learning all of this, but what's your opinion on this particular sign?
I've always been supportive of using logos because I think businesses are identified through logos. But my past experience on this board, previous board decisions have discouraged logos because they violate those guidelines. They want them to be more consistent with type styles, fonts, colors. And so it just depends on what direction the landmark board wants to take. I feel that logos should be allowed because, like I said, they identify the business, and it's something that would discourage businesses from using some of our historic structures if we were to be so strict. But I know that's what the guidelines say, so I think we should discuss those guidelines and make a decision as a board whether we're going to honor them or amend them or take some action on it.
Ms. Fonseca, if I can interject very quickly, if you're finished with the applicant, that would allow us to free up the line so that we can then receive calls from the public if any come in. But right now we've still got the applicant on the line. So if you have any additional questions for the applicant.
Yeah, there's not a way that he can stay like if this were a multi-line thing, because in case additional stuff pops up. The other observation I wanted to make in light of what Becky said was that there is one building that does have a neon. It's not in a historic district, but it is a historic building. That new Narvaez Senior Center complex. Their signage is, oddly enough, we were talking about not inventing signage that mimic or that would pretend to be from that era. I don't know if the signage, that neon thing that's hanging off the building, was reminiscent of the days when KGNS was there, or I mean, if it's a copy or something. But that's one example of the one neon sign that I can think of in the downtown area.
Does anybody have any other questions for the applicant?
Nope. Not me.
No.
If we don't have any other questions,
No.
do we have a motion to close the public hearing on this agenda item?
Actually, Madam Chair, before we close, do we have anybody in the pipeline waiting to speak?
Well, because we've kept the applicant on the line, we haven't had the line open to receive calls. I apologize. There are some limitations doing a virtual meeting, and we do our best, and this is the way we've found that works the best. But if we can excuse the applicant and then still give it a minute or two, see if anyone from the public calls in, that's what I would recommend.
Okay.
No
While
objection
we-
here. Yeah, no
While
objection
we do
here.
that, let me add, excuse me?
Is it
Sure.
okay for the applicant to leave?
Yes.
Okay, Juan, you can let them know it's okay to end, and then we'll wait and see if we get any calls from the public.
What I was gonna mention, while we wait to see any other calls come in, on the guidelines that Ms. Sepulveda was speaking of, and Dr. Green asked, in comparison to this application, one, for example, is limiting the number of flush-mounted signs to one per facade. In this case, we have two, but we still have one per facade because the building is in the corner and we have two facades.
Actually, we have three. If you count the
But we
front,
have the corner.
yeah, the
yes.
corner.
And you can consider that almost an individual facade in itself because and those are the kind of things that we need to update on or clarify. There may be updates, clarifications, or amendments to these guidelines in order to be able to, in the future, continue to review the applications that come before us.
Is there anybody in the pipe waiting to talk?
We will let you know if anyone from the public calls in. As of now, no one has called in. And we've given it sufficient
Should we
time.
go ahead and move to close the public hearing?
All right, so
Do we have a
Close.
second?
I do. I second.
Anybody against closing the public hearing? Please let us know by voice or lifting your hand. If no objections, then we close the public hearing. And do we have any discussions, any further discussions or motion on this item?
Vote.
call the question.
Okay. Yeah. I just moved to vote. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion.
I did not hear if a motion was made.
Yeah, I moved to vote on it.
Do you move to approve the item as presented? Is that your motion?
I think you have to say this. Yeah, I think you have to.
Yeah.
The item on our agenda is a public hearing and consideration of a motion to approve the following new improvements. So we have a motion to move to approve the application as presented. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Do we have any against this motion? Please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. With no objections, then the motion passes. Item 6 on our agenda, director's comments.
Yes, I just want to say a couple things. One, as Ms. Fonseca alluded to, she is working with us to create an agenda item for the future where, we'll be able to discuss some of the items, and I understand she wants to create some subcommittees where y'all can work on some things, and we're just helping her with the Texas Open Meetings Act. There are requirements where we have to make sure we notice everything appropriately, give the public plenty of time, and be specific about what's going to be discussed. So we're working with her on that. And also want to say thank you to everybody. So sometimes the public watches this and they just don't realize, but each of you is a volunteer. I mean, I say this again, but I'm saying it for the benefit of the public, and that is that each of you is a volunteer. You don't get paid for what you do. You do it because and so I want to say thank you for your service, and I really appreciate it, and I know it makes it for the community. So thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Mr. Schneiderman. If I may ask.
Yes.
Mr. Schneiderman, I know this is not on the agenda, but for next month, assuming we have an application, I would like to see the administrative approvals that were granted up until this month, just so that way we can examine them, because I do have questions about a couple of them. Because they did go beyond the scope of work that was approved. And I think that as a board, we need to see that, and we need to have some sort of accountability.
Yeah.
¿Cómo le gusta esta ser problemática?
Oh, wait, did I?
All that information is available online. If you go to our webpage, you'll see an application status.
Right, but in previous under the previous administration, we did have those brought up in a meeting just to let us know. And it seems to me like that part is not really transparent in the sense that we have to ask for them. And so, like I said, I'd like to, at the next meeting, have those administrative approvals so all of us can look at them. And because I do have questions about a couple of them that, as I said before, did go beyond the scope of work.
Well, let me think about that, Ms. Romani. Let me talk with management on that one. What I don't feel comfortable with is I know we have some of those individuals that feel like it's their job. Some of the things in the historic district, and that is not appropriate. We have staff that do that, and that's the appropriate role.
Mr. Schneiderman, it's about transparency. Is there something that you don't want us to see?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then there's no need for you to think about it. It's a request that I am making as the vice chair, and it's a legitimate request. And again, if we all believe in transparency, then we need to see what has been approved.
And as I said, you can see that on the application.
No, but we would like to see that as a board at our meeting.
Well,
That's you cannot. I mean, we can't be using your authority as a director to hide behind this, because as the board, we do have the right to look at this and discuss it. So it's not a matter of let me think about it. No, we as a board. The thing
Mr. Romani, I believe you asked a question and you got an answer. Can we move forward?
Right, but like I said, and it was pretty much a non-answer, Madam Chair. But
Mr. Snyder, where are these available for us to view?
If you go to the department's website, sorry, I'm just closing the blinds here.
Okay.
It happens every day at earlier in the day as the sun changes in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to our website for the department and you go to application status, you can see the status of any application that is available. But giving out the application also puts out everybody's personal information.
Mr. Schneiderman, in previous meetings, all we looked at were the letters that were sent out for approval. And then we asked questions about this. So the excuses that we're giving don't jive. Again, this board, you don't direct us, we direct you. And I sense that there is a consistent micromanagement on your part.
Ms. Romani, I think beyond the call of discussion in a public setting.
Very well.
Thank you, Schneiderman.
You're welcome.
If there's no other questions or discussion, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
I second.
Any opposed, please say yay or raise your hand. With no objections, we close the meeting. Thank you, everyone.